So some HR and operational strategies that can happen when you're in that post-maturity stage can be, so one of them is redundancy. And this is probably something that we are already familiar with just from our everyday lives and the news, particularly in that COVID-19 period. So when an employee is made redundant, this means that their position in the organization is no longer necessary for that business to operate. So they are then dismissed as a result. They're not needed, so they are no longer going to have that job anymore. So redundancy isn't just like being fired, because it does involve the employer paying out that redundant employee as a form of compensation for that job loss. So you may hear of people being given that option to take a redundancy. Maybe if their job is sort of a bit unstable with the business environment, um, an employer might decide to offer redundancies to employees, um, and that employee may choose to take that payout, seeking a more stable job while getting that little influx of money to tide them over until they find that next role. So the payment that an employee gets is going to vary according to the experience of the employee, among some other factors as well. So if you're a brand new employee, then you probably aren't going to get any redundancy payout or very little. Whereas someone who's been at the business for a long time is going to have lots of experience there. They're probably more highly ranked, and that's going to attract more compensation for that job loss. So, in an example, and there are lots of examples that we could think of here, in 2020, the National Rugby League, the NRL, announced that it would make 25% of its staff redundant to save some money. So that was back when COVID-19 was really impacting all sectors and people weren't able to attend games. And so businesses and organizations like the NRL had to think about how they could remain financially viable. And in this case, they chose to make some employees redundant. So if we think about things like going from 2 referees to 1 referee, um, and then also all of the different employees that they would have at levels that you may not sort of hear about in the news. So the NRL would have lots of people who go out to schools and do workshops on rugby league to get people interested and to play the sport. And a lot of those employees lost their jobs during that time. Now, we've got two other human resource strategies and operational strategies. So, this is again that crossover between human resources and operations because it's about the people in the organization, but it's also about the way that the business functions and those operational kind of factors. So, retraining is about employees being educated more in the activities that they have to perform as part of their position. So, um, perhaps if you are part of a business that gets a new piece of technology, it expands in some way, that may mean that you need to learn something new in order to fulfill your role. So, employees can become more motivated and more capable of performing their tasks really well, and that can increase the efficiency in the business. So, that's a positive outcome of retraining. But at the same time, retraining does have some negatives. where it can be costly depending on what it is, and also time consuming as well. So it can limit the business's capacity to hire new staff. If you've just done a whole round of retraining employees and then you lose some employees or you need to hire new employees, then um, that can be really time consuming. You've just gone through this whole phase of retraining, but then you've got new employees and you need to train those people as well. Now, development is different to retraining. This is more of a one-on-one approach. So it's focusing on each employee establishing a plan in conjunction with the employer. So they're working together, and it's going to enable them to develop in their career and improve their ability to conduct their role within the business. So maybe if we think of retraining, if you've got a supermarket and it decides to add an in-store cafe, maybe someone who works at the checkout would need to retrain to learn how to do a barista role as well. Whereas development is about those one-on-one plans between the employer and the employee to think about their careers and how they're going to work to develop their skills in their career trajectory.